Moon Knight Episode 3, The Friendly Type. First off, I'm not entirely sure what the reference for the episode title could be. Maybe I missed it? But I do have one theory I'll get to soon. My quick sum of this episode is that it's fucking packed. I really felt that 6-episode pressure in this halfway point. I mean, at least we got answers as to what's been going on. Now I just want the show to express Mark as a character as much as Steven got in literally one episode. It's not a huge complaint though. The introduction to the Ennead Pantheon and understanding how they work was interesting. I just still feel lost because I know that Mark has been Moon Knight for a while. So this still feels the equivalent of missing an entire prequel of some sort. It could be that it's saved for later. I'll get into that too. Just getting my nitpicks out of the way. My only real disappointment with this episode was the action. Specifically Mark's. Episode 1 made it seem like Mark was this machine of brutality like in the comics, but it just looks like Oscar Isaac is a kid again pretending to be Indiana Jones. Getting Mark's classic wit was nice. And I was excited how the scene was setting itself up. But the scene itself overhypes itself, in my opinion. It feels like the most baited action in the MCU. Especially coming off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where we know Disney Plus series don't have to skimp out on the action quality. It's not terrible, but definitely feels like a regular guy who knows how to street fight. Much different as Moon Knight, which does not actually make sense. Moon Knight's ability to fight is supposed to be all Mark, and that's what the show has given the impression of. It's not like The Crow where the character suddenly knows martial arts. Otherwise, Steven Knight wouldn't be a goofball, and would know kung fu.
You're all going to die.
Don't get me wrong, the Moon Knight action was fucking cool. Finally. And that moon cape. Fuck yes, more please daddy. But god damn it, it kept cutting to Layla at the worst times. Layla's fight was cool, but it's like it was butting in at the climax moments of Mark's fight. I noticed what looked like parallels in both characters as they fought, but I think that could have been sacrificed for some consistently flowing action. Not that Mark had to finish beating the crap out of bad guys for Layla to wait her turn, but I think it shouldn't have ping-ponged between the two as much. Yeah, give hell Moon Knight. What the fuck, I wanted to see Mark beat those two guys first. But like I said, small nitpicks. And are those truncheons or throwing knives? I dunno. They're the bullets that shot him in the back. Awesome. Random bullshit go. Mark's character seems to have a payoff brewing, so I'm not disappointed in that. We learn that Steven's apartment is 20 minutes away from wherever Mark and Layla used to live. Significant. And this episode pretty much cemented the impression that Layla is the MCU version of Marlene. Both were raised by their archaeologist dad who is deceased, and have a romantic connection to Mark. Per episode, I kinda hold back on going over what certain things could mean for anyone who doesn't know the comic history behind Moon Knight, much less has read all 200+ issues of Moon Knight's adventures. Flex. So I'm pretty certain about what Arthur Harrow is talking about when he says Layla doesn't know the truth about Mark. Let's just say it relates to this profile Bobby pulled up from last episode. Ain't good. I don't think it's related to whatever caused Mark to lose a handle on his mental illness, because those events convolute the timeline I have theorized in my head and what I know of Moon Knight's origin. But hey, I could be wrong. However, I don't know who the fuck this Legaro is. I never came across them in the comics, and the only Legaro I could find is this Dynaman character who has some connection to 4th Dynasty Egypt. But that's it? Other than that, the name could just be a coincidence. Maybe we'll see Lake Arrow again. Haro gets some more exposition to him, talking about how he enjoyed brutalizing people in Khonshu's name, but holding resentment for it, calling it his greatest sin. While that may be true, because Khonshu may or may not have pushed his avatars to be a little more bloodthirsty than they needed to be, Haro still appears to be capable of being a big fat liar, lying to the gods about conspiring to release Emmett. I mean, the bitch is practically the avatar of Emmett. What the fuck you think he's going to do? Leave his god to rot in her cage? I think it's literally his job, somewhere in the description, to break her out. Or maybe he's not an avatar because Emmett is locked up, and in theory wouldn't be able to have one anymore, especially since she was so bad that even her last one acted against her. But that still begs the question, how did this all start with Haro getting the staff and searching for Emmett? If the staff somehow connects him to Emmett, then he's basically her avatar. Avatar or not, he carries out actions according to Emmett's theology. And speaking of the staff, from the look of Haro not having it at the trial, I assume the Ennead don't even know Haro is Emmett's Job, and only know him as Khonshu's former avatar. I seem to be right about Khonshu enlisting Mark to stop Emmett from being risen. My question now is, if Khonshu is a banished god, and these other gods apparently aren't very aware of what goes on at ground level Earth, then how does Khonshu know about this whole thing Haro has been trying to do? Maybe it has something to do with Haro's last acts as the Fist of Vengeance. Maybe Khonshu was bored and decided to Facebook stalk his past avatar, coming across his status as in a relationship with Emmett. I don't fucking know. And not gonna know until Khonshu is set free. Oh yeah, Khonshu being trapped in stone. A little nod to how Khonshu was just a statue in the comics. Nice. And also draws another parallel between Mark and Arthur. Servants to imprisoned gods, still enacting their will beyond a simple command. Khonshu's about as emotionally volatile as I expected from the comics. Threatening Mark and Steven, but pitifully asking Mark not leave him behind. But his character is pretty damn entertaining. Has some style and sass. I wanna take a moment to talk about the significance about Mark switching this episode. The first fight was like an inverse of what Steven went through in the first episode. Kinda cool. But the next time Mark switches, it's a good shock to the audience, because you'd have expected Mark to be on a plane back to London. But nope. Everybody's dead on the edge of a cliff, and it wasn't Mark, and everybody knows it's not Steven. It's already been hinted at that Mark has more personalities than just Steven. Now it's completely apparent to be fact. Question is this Jake Lockley? And I say, who the fuck else could it be? I feel comfortable talking about Jake because, since Steven is so different than his comic counterpart, it's fair to assume Jake is going to be a bit different as well. So Jake Lockley is a personality of Mark who would act as the Matches Malone of Mark's Batman joke. Speaking of Batman, Mark sure knows how to do that vanishing act. Jake was like Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver. Drives around, keeps his ear to the ground, gets juicy info on the criminal underworld, usually from Crawley himself. Heck, Jake might have been the one to hitch a ride in the cab. Because taxi cab. Nah, Jake probably would have killed them all then instead of let them go. But anyway, originally, Jake wasn't a very brutal personality. He was more of an easygoing cabbie. Then as Moon Knight's psychology took a down spiral over the years, Jake got a smidge harder. Mark will always be considered a ruthless, virtually damned mercenary with a weighted conscience, but Jake is that type of guy to get in a bar fight because you bad-mouthed his sister. He's gotten less friendly over the years. Moon Knight might be the defender of night travelers, but Jake is more like the defender of the system of alters. He's more willing to take the emotional baggage that even Mark can't deal with. That doesn't make him vile or evil. He just does what he has to do. Oh, and he fucked Marlene, and that's how they had a kid. Anyway, if this is the foreboding of Jake, then it'll be interesting to see if they actually rope him into the story, or leave him as a plot twist towards the end for season 2. Or if any of these broken down cars happen to be taxi cabs. That'd be a cool hint to Jake's presence. Oh, and Jake is what I think the title references. I could, very strongly might be wrong, but I think, somewhere out of the 200 damn issues of Moon Knight I've read that Jake Lockley used to be described as the friendly type. Sarcastically speaking. Not sarcastically if we're talking about 80s Jake, but sarcastic if modern Jake. I feel like that rings a bell in my brain, but again I could be wrong. If I'm not, it's an amazing Easter egg to foreshadow Jake. Besides that, not many more Easter eggs I picked up on in the episode. Besides the Madripoor name drop of course. Another TFTWS reference. Oh shit, and Mogart. Rest in peace actor who played him. Anton Mogart was known as the Midnight Man in Moon Knight lore. Mogart was a kind of thief who liked to steal valuable artifacts, and leave the clock stuck at midnight. His sort of calling card. Moon Knight used to have those. Several of those. Mogart would be presumed dead multiple times, but only ever stuck when hit with cancer. And his son at his bedside. His son is a totally different kin of worms, that little shit. I'll sum it up by saying he's Moon Knight's Jason Todd. If they go that route in season 2, interesting. Doubt it though. This Mogart doesn't look like he'd have a young adult offspring who could pull the shit Comic Jr. did. It's unfortunate we won't seem to get that sort of villain for Moon Knight. Moon Knight doesn't have a huge rogues gallery. This Mogart seemed pretty in line with comic Mogart, besides not exactly having the Midnight Man persona. He's obsessed with ancient artifacts, and is a weasel of a negotiator. He served his purpose. But one more thing, I noticed that after Mogart's supposed-ish death, Khonshu is standing over a clock that appears to be set to midnight. And the moment Mogart is hit, you can hear the clock go ding. Either I'm mistaking this crescent butt of the hand as the end of the hands instead of the hour hand, making it really dark for 6 o'clock in Cairo, or this is a nice little Easter egg to Mogart. One more thing. Ironically, and I don't think this was intended, but the last time I'm aware of that Mogart is ever seen in comics is in Moon Knight Volume 1 Issue 10, where Mogart steals a statue of Khonshu, which is broken in the conflict. This sent Moon Knight into an existential crisis he could hardly get out of without Marlene supposedly squirreling away another Khonshu statue. The irony I noticed is that this episode is likely the only appearance of Mogart, and thus the last appearance of Mogart is the same scenario where Mark temporarily loses his grip on Khonshu and Moon Knight. Again, could be complete coincidence, but it's really interesting either way. Speaking of losing grip on sanity, Mark and Steven's mental tug of war is a good dynamic. Steven taking the back seat doesn't keep him from still being Steven, and it's kind of nice. He's still an Egyptology nerd. Steven actually has just as much use as a voice in Mark's head, where Mark is just good at punching people and being a spy. Steven can still solve puzzles in Mark's head, while Mark can just say,
Just give me the body.
But the balancing of these personalities is what I've been waiting for. I actually liked how Mark as Moon Knight switched straight to Steven as Mr. Knight. With a comedic flip of them wrestling for control now being Steven giving control back to Mark. After being fucking stabbed. Kind of noticed that Moon Knight's eyes had a blue hue to them before he switched to Mr. Knight. Could be nothing. I still want there to be some sort of bleeding of personas, and Steven as Mr. Knight just pulls out his truncheons and fucks people up. Can't get my hopes up though. Something that is interesting is Khonshu's healing armor. In the comics, Mark's fighting style is kind of more reliant on his heavyweight boxing history. He's more willing to take some hits so he can still deal damage to his opponent, rather than dodge or even block incoming attacks. Giving Mark healing armor, he pretty much doesn't need to dodge or block. He can always take the hits. It's an interesting take on that concept, rather than make this crazy guy with no healing factor just willingly take the pain. Now he can get over the pain almost instantly. But with Khonshu now locked away, Mark and Steven are going to have to rely on their own power of crazy to persevere the next episode. By the way, the bit where Khonshu uses Steven as a conduit to manipulate the night was kind of fucking awesome. I love how Khonshu casually makes eclipses and turns back the stars what they were 2000 fucking years ago. It's not like they turned back time or anything, but it's just cool. It'd be like Thor ripping a fart, and a rolling thunder knocks the house down. Overall, I think the episode was pretty good. A little exposition dumpy, making the past couple episodes set up a mystery that was 90% solved in the third episode. Although I'm really feeling the 6-episode pressure. Most of the Disney Plus shows have handled it well, but Moon Knight is tackling a lot. It might be too early to tell, but I think it would have benefited the show to get another 2 episodes at least. Because I'm worried the show will end with no real understanding of what the hell Moon Knight is. Not Mark Spector, and there's no danger of us misunderstanding Stephen Grant. But I feel like we've been gliding over what Moon Knight himself is. As an avatar, as a fist, and especially what that has meant for the months or so Mark has been Moon Knight. But with having 2 episodes be misdirectional mindfuckery, and the third episode being an dump, I'd say the show has been covering some decent ground so far. The episodes definitely feel more like chapters of a larger story. Almost like watching an hour of Lord of the Rings, then waiting a week to watch another hour. It almost feels like the story is backwards. Like Mark has tried to retire as Moon Knight and live as Steven, but has been pulled back into the fight, and we learn how it all started in an almost Memento-type order. If that's the case, then I can't wait until we reach the beginning. Tell me about any Easter eggs I most likely missed, and if there's some other meaning to the episode title that I overvoid-brained on.